Welcome back to the deep dive. I hope you're sitting down or maybe driving somewhere with a lot of open road ahead of you because today we are doing something a little different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Usually we take a topic, history, tech, psychology, and we really drill down to the bottom of it to find the practical takeaways. But
hmm
today we are staring into the abyss.
The abyss. That is a very heavy opener.
It is, but I mean it in the best possible way. We are tackling what might be the single biggest question a human being can ask. And honestly, looking at the stack of papers and translations you've brought to the table today, I think the answer we're going to explore is going to flip a lot of people's perspectives on, well, on everything.
It's certainly a fundamental shift. I think
Yeah.
most of us, when we get into that deep thought mode or we're having that existential crisis at 2 in the morning, we ask questions about ourselves.
Yeah.
Why am I here? What is my purpose? Does my life actually matter in the grand scheme of things?
Naturally, of course we do. We're the center of our own universes. It's kind of the default setting.
Right. But the text we are looking at today, and this is why I love this material so much, they flip the script entirely. They stop asking, why is man here? And they ask a much stranger, much more difficult, and honestly, a much more daring question. Why is God here?
Which, on the surface, that sounds almost arrogant to ask. Like, who are we to audit the creator's location?
It does. It sounds presumptuous. But think about it just logically for a second. If you accept the premise of a God, an infinite, perfect, limitless being, then you have a massive logical problem on your hands immediately.
You mean the problem of why he would need a universe at all?
Exactly. If you are perfect, you don't need anything. That is the very definition of perfection. You don't need a coffee, you don't need a friend, you don't need validation, you certainly don't need entertainment.
Right. Need implies a lack.
A lack, precisely. So the existence of this world, this messy, finite, physical world full of traffic jams and heartbreaks and, grocery shopping, it implies a desire that defies standard logic.
Yeah.
Why does the infinite want a relationship with the finite? And more specifically, why with us?
It is a terrifyingly big question when you frame it like that. Why does the boss of the cosmos care about my commute or my moral struggles or, what I eat for lunch?
And the answer, or at least the beginning of an answer, lies in this stack of documents. We are looking at excerpts from 2 Chassidic discourses, known in Hebrew as Mamarim. The title alone really sets the stage. Basi Legani.
Basi Legani. And that translates to,
I came into my garden.
I came into my garden. That sounds so poetic, almost
Right.
romantic.
It's from the Song of Songs, which is attributed to King Solomon. And yes, it is romantic, but in a cosmic sense. It's describing the essential relationship between the creator and the creation.
Okay, so what are these specific texts?
These specific discourses we're analyzing are dated 5730 and 5731.
Which puts us in, what, 1970 and 1971 for those of us operating on the Gregorian calendar?
Right, and the context here is absolutely key. These were delivered by the Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, but they aren't just standalone lectures he decided to give one Tuesday afternoon. They are built on a foundational discourse that was released by his predecessor, the previous Rebbe.
His father-in-law, right?
Yes, and it was released specifically to mark the day of his passing in 1950.
So this is a legacy text. This isn't just a random thought. This has a last will and testament kind of vibe to it.
It's the legacy text. In the Cherad Chassidic community, this document, this whole series of discourses on Basi Legani, is seen as the mission statement for our entire generation. It's the blueprint.
The blueprint for what?
For the specific era we are living in right now, it frames the entire purpose of why we are alive here in the 20th and 21st centuries.
So, okay, let's get into it. What is the mission? If we boil down thousands of words of deep Hebrew and Yiddish, what are we actually talking about here?
We are exploring a concept called dera b'taktanim.
Dera b'taktanim. Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. Dera means a dwelling, a home, a place where you live. And b'taktanim means in the lowest realms.
A home in the lowest realms.
Precisely. The text posits that the ultimate purpose of everything, galaxies, history, biology, your morning coffee, your anxiety, the stock market, all of it, is to construct a home for the divine essence right here in this physical world.
See, home is a loaded word. It's not a hotel, it's not an office, it's not a vacation rental.
No, and that distinction is absolutely vital. The text is very specific. It's not a visitation center where God pops in for miracles or on high holidays. It's a dwelling. Think about your own life. When you're at work or at a party or even right now recording this, are you totally 100% yourself.
Definitely not. No. I'm wearing a mask. I'm projecting a persona. I'm trying to be polite. I'm watching my language. I'm host guy.
Exactly. You are performing, even just a little. But when you go home,
Yeah.
when you lock that door, kick off your shoes, and put on those sweatpants that have the hole in the knee.
Then I'm just me. For better or worse. I'm not performing for anyone. I'm just there.
You are your essential self. You are unmasked. The text is arguing that God, the infinite essence, the Awtsmoos as it's called, wants to be at home in that same way. He wants to be fully present, unmasked, comfortable, specifically in this physical world.
And what I love about where this text goes, and what we're going to really unpack, is that this isn't just some high-level philosophy for monks sitting on a mountain. It turns out that this cosmic architecture relies entirely on the stuff we usually consider to be, well, failure.
That's the hook. That's the big twist. We tend to think of spirituality as escaping the physical mess. If I could just get away from my job, my bills, my temptations, then I could be holy.
Right. If I could just get on that mountaintop.
But these texts argue the complete opposite. They say the physical mess is the construction site. The struggle is the raw material.
So it's not about escaping the world. It's about hacking it or transforming it.
Transforming it.
Yep.
Exactly. But to understand how we build this house, we need to understand the history of the property. Because the text starts with a bit of a history lesson, and it disrupts the standard narrative right off the bat.
Okay, so this is our first big segment, the history of the divine presence. The descent and ascent, as the outline calls it.
Right, so the text traces the history of the Shechinah.
The divine presence.
The divine presence, yes. And usually, people think God is up there in heaven and we are down here on earth and never the twain shall meet. But the text quotes a midrash, an ancient rabbinic teaching that says, originally, at the very beginning of creation, the primary location of the Shechinah wasn't in heaven, it was here.
On earth.
Yes, on earth. That phrase we started with at Legani, I came into my garden, it implies a return. You only come back to a garden if you were there to begin with. The text states it clearly. The essence of the Shechinah was originally in the lower realms.
So earth was the original plan, the Garden of Eden. God was comfortable here, this was home base. But obviously, I can look out the window right now and, well, I don't see the divine essence glowing on the lawn. It looks pretty mundane out there.
It does, and the text explains why. It describes a massive withdrawal, a retreat. It talks about unwanted matters that pushed the presence away.
Unwanted matters is a very polite way of saying sins.
A very diplomatic term.
Yes.
Yes. It starts with the very first one. The sin of the tree of knowledge.
The famous fruit. Adam and Eve.
Right. And whatever the fruit was, a fig, wheat, a grape, a citron, the commentaries argue about it. The object doesn't matter as much as the act itself. That act of disobedience, of prioritizing the self and the ego over the divine will, it caused a rift.
It made things awkward.
It was like shouting at an honored guest in your living room. You made them uncomfortable. So the Shechinah withdrew. The text says the presence moved from the earth up to what it calls the first firmament.
And it didn't stop there, right? This wasn't a one-time eviction. It was more like a slow retreat.
No, it was a cascade, a domino effect. As humanity spiraled downward, each major transgression pushed the presence further away. The second one was Cain killing Abel.
Okay, so that pushes God from the first firmament to the second.
To the second, yes. Then you had the generation of Enosh, which the sages say is when idolatry really began in earnest. People started worshiping stars and intermediaries. That pushed the presence to the third firmament.
This is getting depressing.
It is a story of increasing distance. After that, the generation of the flood. The world was so corrupt it had to be, rebooted. That was the fourth firmament. Then the Tower of Babel, humanity's collective project of arrogance. Let's make a name for ourselves.
That's the fifth.
The fifth. Then the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah, the peak of cruelty and selfishness. That's the sixth. And finally, the sins of the Egyptians in the time of Abraham.
So by that point, the divine presence has retreated all the way to the seventh heaven, as far away as you can get.
Exactly. We have this image of God essentially backing away from the world step by step because of human action. The world becomes darker, more physical, less spiritual. It goes from a garden to a wilderness.
It feels completely abandoned to nature and politics and chaos. It feels like God is in his heaven and we are down here on our own.
Right. That becomes the default human experience. God is distant.
But the text doesn't leave us there. This is a story of descent and ascent. There's a return journey.
There is. This is the second half of the story. The text describes 7 shepherds, 7 righteous individuals, tzaddikim, who arose to reverse this entire process.
The fixer team. So who started the reversal? Who threw the first rope back down?
Abraham, he was the first. And notice what made him special. He wasn't just a mystic sitting in a cave meditating on unity. He was active in the world. His kindness, his radical hospitality, feeding travelers in the desert, his public proclamation of monotheism in a pagan world, those actions had power. They started to pull the presence back down.
So Abraham's good deeds brought the Shechinah from the seventh firmament.
Down to the sixth. He pulled the rope. He started the counter-revolution.
And it continues from there.
It does. His son, Isaac, with his own unique form of service, particularly his willingness for self-sacrifice, he brought it down to the fifth. Then Jacob, who wrestled with angels and men, who established a household dedicated to God, brought it to the fourth.
So we're halfway back. Who are the next ones?
Levi, Jacob's son, brought it to the third. Then his son Kehos to the second. And Kehos' son Amram brought it to the first. We're right at the threshold.
It's a generational tug of war. But the crucial moment, the real climax of this history, is the seventh generation.
And the text has a specific phrase about this that we need to flag. It's a principle. Gol, Hashvin, Shebivin. All sevenths are beloved.
Which is a pattern you see all over in Judaism. The seventh day is Shabbat, the holy day of rest. The seventh year is the sabbatical year, Shemitah.
Exactly. There is something about the number 7 that implies completion, bringing a cycle back to its source, but on a higher level. The seventh generation from Abraham was Moses. His job wasn't just to move the presence from firmament 1 to firmament 0. His job was to bring it all the way down to earth again, to ground it, to make it stick.
To finish the job, Abraham started 7 generations earlier.
To complete the circuit. And how did he do it? This is critical. Moses was the greatest prophet who ever lived, sure. But the text doesn't focus on his prophecy or his meditation or his leadership skills. It focuses on a construction project.
The Mishkan, the tabernacle in the desert.
The portable sanctuary. The verse quoted is one of the most famous in the Torah. And they shall make me a sanctuary, and I will dwell among them.
I will dwell among them. I've always heard that emphasized. It doesn't say dwell in it, in the building. It says among them, in the people.
That's a classic, beautiful insight. It means within each and every one of them. But there's another shift here that the text highlights, and it's very easy to miss. Up until Moses, who was moving the needle.
Individuals, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, these spiritual supermen, giants.
Right. But with the tabernacle, the command wasn't just for Moses. It was, they shall make me a sanctuary.
It went from the singular to the plural. It went to the crowd.
It went to the people. The power to bring God back to earth shifted from being the exclusive domain of the spiritual elite to being the responsibility and the capability of the common person.
So the catalyst was Moses. He's the CEO. He gets the instructions from the top. But the labor, the funding, that's us.
Yes. And the text points out that the actual construction involved intensely physical materials: gold, silver, copper, goat hair, dyed skins, acacia wood.
Very physical stuff, expensive stuff, stuff you have to dig for or shear or trade for.
And the donation of that wealth, the weaving of the curtains, the hammering of the gold, the carrying of the beams, that was done by the people. This is a huge democratization of spirituality. It implies that ordinary action building, a physical structure with your physical wealth and your physical hands, is what anchors the divine.
It grounds the circuit. It takes it from a concept and makes it a reality.
Correct. And this brings us right back to that word, dira, a dwelling. God didn't want a thought experiment about his presence. He wanted a physical house made of gold and wood and fancy tapestries sitting on the desert sand.
Okay. Which leads us to the big why. This feels like the right place for our next segment, because honestly, we've established that he wants a home here. But looking at the news, looking at history, looking at the guy who just cut me off in traffic, this world is a mess. It's dark, it's painful, it's confusing. Why would the essence of perfection want to live here, of all places?
This is the core of the whole discourse, the question of why. And it's fascinating because the sources, they actually take the time to reject all the standard theological answers we usually hear.
Let's play devil's advocate then. What are some of those standard answers that people give?
Well, a common one you hear is something like, God created the world to be known. He was this infinite power, and he wanted an audience. He wanted someone to look up at the stars and say, wow, look how powerful God is, to reveal his attributes.
That sounds plausible. A creator wants their work to be appreciated. Or what about God is inherently benevolent, and it is the nature of the benevolent to do good, so he created someone to be good to. He needed a recipient for his kindness.
Right. Both of those sound nice. They make sense to our logical minds. But the text rejects them as the ultimate reason. as the primary motivation,
Why? What's wrong with them?
because they imply a need, or at least a logical utility. Take the first one. If God just wants to be known, to have his greatness recognized, he could have created legions of high-ranking angels with massive super intellects who could appreciate him on a level we can't even imagine.
That's a good point. If I want to explain quantum physics, I go talk to a physicist, not a toddler. The toddler won't get it.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
why create a physical human who struggles to even believe he exists half the time? If the goal is to be known, this world is a terrible design. It's designed to hide him more than it reveals him.
Okay, so that one's out. What about the kindness argument? He needed a vessel for his goodness.
Same basic issue. You can be kind to spiritual souls in a spiritual paradise. You don't need a world of cancer and war and poverty to demonstrate kindness. The higher spiritual worlds, the ones we just discussed, would have sufficed for all of those logical reasons.
So if it's not for fame, and it's not for charity, and it's not based on any logic we can grasp, what is it?
The text uses a very specific, very powerful Hebrew word, mithaveh. It comes from the root ta'ava.
And what does that mean? Tava.
It means desire.
Desire. Not will or plan or intention. Desire.
Desire. In some contexts, it can even be translated as lust or craving. Obviously, we have to strip away the negative or physical connotations when we're talking about God, but we have to keep the intensity. The phrase is, God desired a dwelling in the lowest worlds.
That feels strangely human. It's an emotional word, not a philosophical one.
And yet, the analysis of this is crucial. What is a desire? A true desire is, by definition, above and beyond logic. The text quotes a famous Chassidic saying, "Of a tahava fragt men nit kashyas." On a desire, you cannot ask a question.
I think I've heard that. It's like if I tell you I want a specific flavor of ice cream,
Right. If you say, I want mint chocolate chip, and I come to you with a spreadsheet and say, why?
I just say because I like it. That's the only answer.
And if I say, but vanilla is more statistically popular, or strawberry has more vitamin C, does that change your mind in the slightest?
No, I just want it. There's no reason.
Exactly. If you have a reason, I want it because it's high in calcium, then the desire is conditional. It's based on logic. If I can find you a calcium pill that's more efficient, you don't need the ice cream anymore. The reason was the point. But a raw, essential desire, that stems from the Awtsmoos, the very essence of who you are. It's not for anything. It just is.
So you're saying God wants this world just because he wants it, full stop.
I'm saying he wants it because it touches the deepest part of his self. And that just because is actually the highest possible connection. It means we aren't here for a function. We aren't here as a utility or an audience or a charity case. We are here because he wants to be here with us.
That's a powerful shift. It moves the entire relationship from being transactional to being essential.
Correct. And this leads to what I like to call the paradox of the lowest realm. The text defines this lowest world very specifically. It's not just physically distant from some spiritual plane. It is a place where godliness is completely and utterly hidden, a place where physical objects feel independent.
A rock just feels like a rock. It has its own existence. I am a rock, and that's it.
Right. A rock doesn't scream, God made me. It just sits there being a rock. A politician doesn't scream, I am an agent of the divine will. He screams, vote for me.
It's a place of ego, of separation.
And that concealment, that darkness, that separation is the key. The text argues that it's because this world is so dark, so devoid of any apparent spiritual light, that it proves the connection is rooted in his very essence.
Okay, wait, walk me through that again. How does the darkness prove the connection to the essence? That seems counterintuitive.
Think of it this way. If you have a brilliant idea, let's call that idea a light or a revelation, it can travel far. You can write a book about it, you can teach it to students. But eventually that light fades.
Yeah.
It gets misunderstood. It has a limit. Revelation always has a limit. A student might not get it, or a culture might reject it.
Okay. The light stops where the receiver can't handle it or doesn't want it.
But yourself, your essence.
Yeah.
You as a person can go anywhere. You can be in a palace or you can be in a dungeon. Your essential self has no limits in that sense. God's essence, his self, has no limits. It can be anywhere. So the very fact that God can be present in a place that completely contradicts his nature, a place that screams, I am separate from God, shows that we are dealing with his unlimited essence, not just his limited revelation.
I think I'm getting it. Only the true essence is powerful enough to exist in a place that denies its existence.
Exactly. There is a principle. There's no place void of him, even a place that actively denies him. That denial, that darkness, is actually the proof of the depth of the connection. If he were just light, The darkness would block him out. Since he is essence, the darkness is just another place for him to be.
That is the aha moment right there. The darkness isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's the proof of depth.
It's the entire foundation of the building.
Okay, so we know the why, this inexplicable, essential desire for a home in the dark. Now we need the how. This brings us to our third segment, the methodology. How do we as finite human beings actually build this dwelling? Because I assume it's not about bricks and mortar anymore. We don't have a tabernacle. I can't go to Home Depot and buy Divine Presence lumber.
No, the physical sanctuary was the model. It was the prototype.
Yeah.
But the ongoing construction happens within the human consciousness and, more importantly, human behavior. The text outlines two primary modes of service, iskafia and ishatcha.
These sound like martial arts moves or something. Let's break them down. Iskafia first.
Iskafia is an Aramaic word. It means subjugation or bending. This is the grunt work. This is the day-in, day-out struggle. This is when you want to do something that you know is wrong. You want to lose your temper at your kids because they spilled the milk again. You want to gossip about a coworker. You want to doom scroll on your phone instead of being present with your spouse. And you stop yourself.
You hit the brakes. You just say no.
You bend your will to God's will. You suppress the negative urge.
But the urge is still there, right? You haven't gotten rid of it.
No, absolutely not. The urge is roaring. You haven't killed the desire. You've just wrestled it to the ground and put it in a headlock. You want the cake, but you don't eat the cake. That is iskafia.
It sounds painful. It sounds like constant repression.
It feels like struggle. It feels like friction. But the text says this struggle, this act of saying no to your lower self, creates a tremendous amount of spiritual light or energy. It clears the space. It sweeps the floor of the construction site.
Okay, so that's the basic level. What's the other one? Ishatcha.
Ishatcha means transformation.
Yeah.
This is the advanced class. This is where you take that darkness, that negative drive that you were just suppressing, and you actually flip it. You turn it into a force for good.
Flip it how? Give me an example.
Okay, so let's say you have a really strong drive for ambition, for power. The iskafia approach is to not act on it when it would lead you to step on other people. You suppress the urge to be ruthless.
Right.
The iskafia approach is to take that very same fiery ambition and reroute it. You become relentlessly, aggressively ambitious about doing charity. You use that same drive for greatness to build a school or to fight for justice. You turn the bitterness of the raw energy into the sweetness of a holy act.
You're not killing the fire, you're just changing what it burns.
You're putting it in the engine instead of letting it burn down the house.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate goal. And to explain why this struggle matters so much, the text uses a really vivid metaphor. It introduces the army metaphor, Zvot Hashem, the armies of God.
I love this part of the text. It's so clear. It distinguishes between two types of servants a king might have, the ministers and the soldiers.
Right. So the ministers, they represent the spiritual elite. You can think of them as the angels or the souls of the righteous before they come down to earth. They sit in the palace with the king. They understand the king. They admire his wisdom. They help run the kingdom from the safety and comfort of the capital city.
They are the cabinet. They wear nice suits. They don't get their hands dirty. They have air conditioning and catered lunches.
Exactly. They serve with their intellect and their refined emotions. It's a high-level, clean service. But then you have the soldiers.
The grunts, the infantry.
The soldiers are on the front lines. They are in the mud. They are sent to conquer new territory that is currently hostile to the king. That's us. We are in a world that is, by its nature, hostile to godliness, a world that fights back against holiness.
And the service of a soldier is fundamentally different from the service of a minister.
Completely different. A minister serves with his mind. A soldier serves with his life. The soldier's defining characteristic is Mesiras Nefesh, total self-sacrifice. A soldier follows orders even when they make no sense, simply because they are orders from the commander. That is the acceptance of the yoke of heaven.
And here is where the text pulls a complete reversal on us. Because we usually think the ministers are the VIPs. They're the important ones. They are closest to the king. But when it comes to the allocation of resources,
The entire resource allocation flips upside down. The text talks about the king's treasures.
this is such a cinematic image. It's great.
It is. The text says, imagine a king who has a secret vault of treasures that have been passed down for generations, the crown jewels, things so rare, so precious, he doesn't even show them to his closest advisors in the palace. The ministers have never seen them. They might not even know they exist.
They are locked away, too precious to even look at, let alone use.
But when the war starts, when the enemy is at the gates and the very survival of the kingdom is at stake,
The policy changes. drastically.
The king throws open the vaults. He takes those most precious hidden treasures, the things he wouldn't even show the ministers, and he squanders them on the common soldiers.
Squanders is such a strong word. It's not invests, it's squanders.
The text implies a reckless, almost illogical generosity. He gives the highest technology, the best weaponry, the deepest strategic secrets to the guy in the muddy boots on the front line.
Because he has to win the war. The whole enterprise depends on that soldier.
Exactly. If the soldier falls, the kingdom falls. So the soldier gets priority access to the best stuff over and above the minister in the palace.
So translate this for us. What is the treasure in our spiritual lives?
The treasure is the Awtsmoos, the essence of God. It's the deepest, most hidden secrets of the Torah. The text is making a radical claim that in our times of spiritual war, where concealment is high and the struggle is real, God gives ordinary people like you and me access to levels of spirituality and divine energy that were previously hidden even from the greatest mystics of the past.
That is just incredible. So because we are the ones on the front line, dealing with the internet, dealing with modern apathy, dealing with this heavy, oppressive physicality of the world.
We get the heavy artillery. The soldier in the trench gets the best equipment. Not because he is the smartest or the most refined, but because he is the one doing the most crucial work. We have access to the essence because we are the ones tasked with building the essential dwelling.
That is unbelievably empowering. It completely reframes the feeling of being low or unspiritual. The fact that I'm struggling just means I'm at the front.
Precisely. And this connects directly to the next point, which is perhaps the most challenging and controversial part of the entire text. This is segment 4. The paradox of failure and the returnee.
This is a tough one to wrap your head around. The text discusses descent for the sake of ascent.
The Hebrew phrase is yerida sorek aliyah.
And it seems to suggest that the sins like the golden calf or the original sin of the tree of knowledge were in some way intended, or at least part of the cosmic plan. That feels dangerous.
It's a very delicate point, and we have to be extremely careful here. The text is not, under any circumstances, telling you to go out and sin.
Right. There's a big "don't try this at home" warning label here.
A huge one. Don't sin to get the upgrade. That's just using an excuse. But it is looking at the aftermath. It's looking at the reality of the situation. It says the descent was for the sake of the ascent. Think about it this way. If you fall down a flight of stairs, and then you get up, and you are exactly where you were before you fell, then the fall was just a waste of time. It was a pointless tragedy.
Right. Just a net loss of time and energy, and you have a bruised ego. You're just back to zero.
But the text argues that in God's plan, there are no pointless tragedies. If the world descended into darkness because of a sin, then the repair process, the teshuvah, the return, must bring us to a place higher than where we started before the sin ever happened.
So the repair isn't a restoration, it's an upgrade. A massive one.
A massive upgrade. And this is perfectly illustrated by the difference between the tzaddik, the perfectly righteous person, and the Baal Teshuvah, the returnee.
The text really puts the Baal Teshuvah on a pedestal here, which is not what you'd normally expect.
Not at all. The tzaddik is the minister, from our previous analogy. He has never sinned. He has always been in the palace. He reveals the light of God through his righteous deeds. He's clean. He walks a straight line. His life is a beautiful, consistent revelation of goodness.
But the Baal Teshuvah, the person who has messed up.
The Baal Teshuvah has fallen. He has left the palace. He has touched the darkness. He's been in the mud with the enemy. When he returns, he does something that tzaddik is incapable of doing. He transforms that darkness itself into light.
This is that idea of turning sins into merits. How does that actually work?
The Baal Teshuvah has a thirst, a desperate, burning drive that the tzaddik simply cannot have. He knows what it's like to be away from God, so his desire to reconnect is explosive. It's the difference between a satisfied husband who loves his wife and a long-lost lover who's been separated by war for years and is finally reunited. The passion is on a different level.
The desperation creates an unmatched intensity.
And because his work involves transforming the actual bad into good, he is doing that ultimate soldier work of conquering hostile territory. He is bringing God into a place where he was previously absent. That touches the very essence.
There's a powerful analogy in the text about a flashlight versus the sun.
Yes. This is a great way to understand why the returnee is considered so powerful. It distinguishes between two types of divine light, or gavul, which is limited light, and or blei gavul, limitless light.
Okay, break that down for us.
The tzaddik operates with limited light. Think of a flashlight.